On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers in our hometown of Green Bay. This is episode 59, created on October 31st, 2023. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minnesota and Neil on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen. Tonight I'm knocking on heaven's door. I'm having Heaven's Door bourbon neat.
It is Halloween, and I am having the Conshohocken Brewery Nightmare on East Elm Street. And I'll ignore the pumpkin because pumpkin ales suck, but it's appropriately festive.
Sounds delicious. And I go with a Wisconsin classic of a Crown and Coke. You can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC Podcast, Green Bay Chat. And just the audio is available on Spotify by searching for Green Bay Chat. What are we talking about tonight? Pretty simple. Week 8, hosting the Minnesota Vikings, the Packers staying in town, and the Los Angeles Rams coming to town, along with two really cool guys that I know are going to be in Green Bay this week. And there's some trade talk. Today is the trade deadline. We'll talk about that as well. But let's go back to Lambeau Field on Sunday. The Halloween weekend game ends up being the nightmare of, or the nightmare before Halloween, a 24-10 loss to our dreaded neighbors, the Minnesota Vikings. Neil, I know you've got the numbers. What went wrong?
3 and out to start the game.
Yeah.
13 first downs for Minnesota to 0 for Green Bay before we started to get our offense going. Anything that we're talking about is going to start out right there.
Well, I think you just kind of covered it, right? Seriously, the lack of time of possession, no ball control, all 3 and out. What the hell? Yet another weekend of this crap.
If you look at how this team plays in the second half, and you would say, why can't they come out and do this right away? Why isn't this our first half team? And to be fair, that first drive, you've got Jordan Love extending a play and throwing 20 yards downfield with a penalty that brings it back. It's really that penalty that changes the scope of that drive, but it didn't start out terrible.
But it's the overall theme of the year. We're just constantly shooting ourselves in our own dicks. And yes, we started out with the pass to Musgrave. We go to Dillon, 3rd and 1. It is a 3rd and 1. Keep in mind that long completion to Dobbs was on a 3rd and 1. We didn't need to do a whole lot. And yet Rasheed Walker just sort of casually walks his way downfield. That was just appalling to watch on the replay, seeing Rasheed Walker just sort of casually going several yards downfield. He wasn't doing anything. He just decided, I'm going to move myself forward. That was a 5-yard penalty that was for absolutely no reason. And even though it was a 5-yard penalty, it was realistically a 26-yard penalty. It cost us 26 yards in field position. But the other theme of the game is that we could not do anything on 3rd down, either on offense and defense. And on that first drive, we actually had 3 failures. Then we had in 3rd and 6, and we had a free play, and we throw an incompletion that moved us back to a 3rd and 1, and Dillon went for 0 yards. We actually were 0 for 3 on 3rd downs, despite being a 3 and out on that very first possession. Penalty, bad play, bad line play. That first drive was a microcosm of the entire game for us.
Looking at the drives too, like some of these drives, game time, are like a minute and a half. The fact that the Packer defense actually held the Vikings to 10 points in the first half, the fact that they were on the field most of the half, one, and the fact that there was literally no traction, no anything until there was. Again.
If you ignore the 3rd downs, this team is playing pretty well.
Well, those 3rd downs were kind of critical, and they were critical on both offense and defense. I've got the whole statistics on that.
All right.
But let's go right to that second drive that Minnesota have. And we got lucky really early on with that second drive. Minnesota went, as is the typical situation for the Joe Barry defense. They had an 11-play drive that moved the ball downfield. They converted a 3rd and 8. They converted a 3rd and 1, but thankfully they missed the field goal. And I honestly, this is a game that could have gone in our favor, but could have easily gone much worse in the Vikings' favor, depending on how the ball bounced in all of those plays. And that second drive, however, it indicated what our defense was going to do. all day. The Vikings converted. Thankfully, they did not score that touchdown, which in the end allowed it to be a closer game at halftime than it really deserved to be.
So, and again, we've got the dropped interception as well. Just hit him in the hands. One of these where that would have, stopped the Vikings drive. Packers would have had a good field position.
But you're right, Jeff. You said it earlier that this defense held the Minnesota Vikings to just 10 points, despite how much time the Vikings are on the field, how little rest and recuperation the offense is giving them. And when you look at individual performances, Preston Smith had a great day. Rashawn Gary had a good day. Quay Walker had a good day. I think TJ Slayton had a stellar.
TJ Slayton had a huge day.
He did.
The grading on Quay Walker was actually not quite so good. It was actually a very negative grading for Quay Walker all on the day.
I go by the eye test. I think that he's in position. He's doing what he needs to. And then, but add to that, him getting Devondre Campbell back in the inside linebacker spot with him. And Campbell had a decent day as well. He did what we expect him to do.
Campbell led the team with tackles. First game back, boom, 14 total tackles, 10 solo. He was an animal out there, as we've expected, but it was good to see him back. So maybe, he was a bit of a catalyst. Who knows?
This had more of a feel of leading the team in a Blake Martinez sense rather than leading the team in a Quay Walker sense. Going back to the third downs and all of the big conversions, and more importantly, the long drives, right? We talked about this last week with Denver. It was the long drives. The Vikings, 11-play drives, 7-play drive, 77 for a touchdown, 9 plays, 73 yards. Their first 3 drives were all huge drives as far as the number of plays. And in the second half, it was the same thing, a 13-play drive, a 14-play drive. We are able to stop some of those drives earlier than maybe those stops the defense made late in the game are going to mean a lot more. We're going to have the opportunities out of that. Just sort of globally going into these statistics for the first quarter. Again, the Vikings started out with 13 first downs to our 0 before we got a first down. First quarter was 8-0 in first downs. Vikings were 3 of 4 on third downs in the first quarter. We were 0 of 3 on third downs in the first quarter, 94 yards to 15 in the first quarter overall, 63 passing yards to -5 in the first quarter. And if you're at -5 net passing yards in the first quarter, it's not going to be a good quarter for you. And again, we were lucky we were only down 7-0.
So Neil, that's the end of the first quarter. Again, 7-0. Defense holding them. We got lucky on the missed field goal, right? The asshats for the Vikings show up there. Packers have the ball starting the second quarter. Okay, they punt. But things do get better in the second quarter? Question mark?
They do eventually, but the first drive of the Vikings in the second quarter was 9 plays and 73 yards, again with a number of third down conversions. And we follow that up immediately with another 3 and out. And thankfully, our defense started to make stops in that second Vikings drive of the second quarter. They only went 20 yards in their second drive of the second quarter. And that gave us an opportunity for our one big drive of the first half.
Sustained big drive even, which, hey, what a concept.
Sustained. Yeah. So the drive was 14 plays, 73 yards. It took 4 minutes and 56 seconds. It also took 3 timeouts. But I think the most frustrating part of that drive that ended the first half for us is that somehow, despite having 4:56, despite having 3 timeouts, we still had to kick a field goal on second down because of clock management. And yes, this is a young team, but again, the coach is not a young coach. The coach is now in his 5th year. And I would think that the coaching staff should have a better handle on how to manage the game such that we're able to, once we get down to Minnesota's 10-yard line, we actually will have time to take a couple of shots at the end zone. And 14 plays, 73 yards sounds really good, but we never even had a shot really at the end zone. And it's just a really frustrating opportunity. I mean, it's good that we got the field goal that put us within 1 score at halftime, but how can you have that much time and not give yourself a shot at a touchdown?
But we also almost didn't get the field goal as well. And how miserable would that have been if you have another first half shutout? I mean, this team has been dismal in the first half and putting points on the board since week 2. It's ugly is the only word you can use.
Yeah, well, and then it was the Vikings asshats again. He missed the field goal. The players are all walking off the field, and that was kind of one of those, anytime the ref has to call them back, it was, That was pretty weird, right? I mean, that was just it was a gimme 3 points because he missed the field goal, and it was like, oh God, really what can go wrong did go wrong. So again, this is sort of that razor thin now. Oh, instead of the doink.
Oh, that had some solid sound to it, didn't it? I was actually listening on the radio at the time. And holy cow, did that come across on the radio?
Sometimes it's better be lucky than good. We had a bounce go our way. Somebody lining up completely, in the neutral zone. Yay. But, we'll take it. A little momentum going in. Again, 10-3 game, right? So you're thinking, sweet. Okay. This is a second half team, especially third quarter. Highest ranked offense, passing, what have you.
And to summarize that second quarter, the Vikings and the Packers had the same number of first downs in the second quarter. We had essentially the same number of yards. The Vikings at 88 to our 83, 5 first downs each. It was an evenly matched second quarter, even by score, 3 points for each of those teams in the second quarter. We had primed ourselves as a third quarter team.
So going into halftime, and you're thinking, oh, okay, our third quarters have been good. Let's put something together this week. Would I like it if the team was making adjustments in game in the first, second quarter? I would love it. It just doesn't seem to be happening. But something happens in that locker room. Whatever's happening has to be pretty damn amazing the way this team comes out in the third quarter. Like I said earlier, why can't they start the game that way? Yeah. I don't know. But if the defense can hold an opponent to 10 points in the first half, and they're going to come out strong in the third quarter, they will continue to be in games.
Right. But unfortunately, the script was a little off this time. So the Vikings get the ball first. And so much for that tough defense. It was another big, sustained drive against the defense.
The Vikings had 13 plays for 75 yards to score a touchdown, took it from 10-3 to 17-3. And I think the most discouraging element of that first drive, other than the fact that we thought we had a momentum and we lost it all over that drive, is the Vikings were 3 of 4 on third down conversions on that drive. And the one third down conversion they didn't make, they made a fourth down conversion. So every chance that they had that they needed to make a conversion, they made a conversion, mostly on third down, once on fourth down. And if you can't get the defense off the field, that is not on the offense that the defense couldn't get itself off the field.
And that ultimately was the game-winning drive. As it turned out, Packers just, no matter what the defense did, the Vikings made all of the key plays. The Vikings only had to go for it on fourth down once, and they were successful. In addition to being very successful, 10 of 18 on third down for the game. So, okay, the Vikings, big sustained drive. Packers get the ball back, thinking, all right, here's our chance. That didn't go really according to script, did it, Neil?
No, and we're a third quarter team, and the big bugaboo our team has had all year has been having long third downs. And on that first drive of the second half of the Packers, we had a 0-yard run for Aaron Jones. We had a 2-yard pass to Dobbs, so it's a 3rd and 8. Jordan Love goes for a long pass. It's a good pass to Jaden Reed, but unfortunately, Jaden Reed is a young receiver and did not go to pull the ball back away from the defender. It ends up being an interception that Jaden Reed really should have caught.
That was one of those sort of almost 50-50 balls. But as I noted in real time watching that, I'm like, our receivers are falling away from the ball. They're not snatching the ball, call what you will, right? They're not actively catching the ball. They're sort of letting the ball play them, it seems like. And that has been a recipe for a complete disaster.
Yeah, Watson had a number of plays that were like that too. And you could argue this is young receivers. And certainly with Jaden Reed, you can make more of an argument for young receivers. Christian Watson and Dobbs, I think, are a different story. And we've got to talk about that maybe a little bit later. But one of the elements of that interception is that they had a very long return that set them up perfectly for their next drive. They made it all the way down to the Packers' 20-yard line after being over midfield, and Kirk Cousins took advantage of that situation.
So much for then the Vikings sustained drive. Well, they didn't really need a sustained drive, did they? They just needed a play.
And Jordan Addison, a pick that Jeff ruthlessly disparaged in the preseason. Jordan Addison, I think, has proved his value for the Vikings and proven himself to be a really good player and a good pick for the Vikings, even without Justin Jefferson playing the game. So, certainly somebody who's establishing himself as a Wookiee wide receiver in his first year.
And, serendipitously, it turns out, right? Because you've got Jefferson, number one. until you don't, till like you said, he's on IR. So Addison, yeah, let's just plug, and he steps up. And again, that's what we're really not seeing in Green Bay. There's been flashes here and there, but no sustained wide receivers, no matter what tenure, coming in and establishing themselves. Flashes, yes, but sustained, no.
Well, let's just look at the receiving core for the Vikings. Osborne had 99 yards and 8 receptions. Hawkinson had 88 yards and a touchdown on 6 receptions. Jordan Addison, 82 yards and 7 receptions and a touchdown as well.
Yep.
Jaden Reed was the only person who was close to that, and it was a very long pass that got him close to that. Watson only had 33 yards on 3 receptions. Wicks, 28 yards, 2 receptions. Dobbs, 18 yards on only 4 receptions. Our wide receivers overall in the game, 17 receptions for 162 yards on 27 targets.
Well, and that's the key, Neil, the 27 targets. Again, you've got Jaden Reed. Okay, so he caught 4 of 6 that was thrown to him. But Watson, he caught 3 of 8. Seriously? And then Dobbs, 4 of 9. So again, you know, terrible. They're throwing to him. They're trying anyway, right? So the leading, you know, by actual receptions was AJ Dillon with 5. This was, again, a perfect example. You've got the stud tight end for the Vikings, the rookie or the Wookiee wide receiver in Addison with 7 catches, 82 yards. He has 8 targets, right? KJ Osborne, 8 receptions on 10 targets, and Hawkinson, 6 receptions on 9 targets. So yeah, they were efficient. They're catching the ball. They're doing things that the Packer receivers, for whatever reason, don't seem to be doing. But now things change. We've spotted them 21 points, so it's 24-3. And so now the offense says, okay, let's start playing.
Although on the kickoff return, we only went to the 19-yard line again. We talked a couple of weeks ago about all of the negative plays by the asshats on kickoff returns.
And that was one of them.
We had 2 negative 6-yard returns by the asshats. Our best kickoff return by far was the one that went out of bounds where we got it at the 40. But at any rate, we were able to actually do something on the next drive. We actually played like the third quarter Packers on the next drive. We ended up going 81 yards on 14 plays and a number of key conversions: a 10-yard pass to Dobbs on 3rd and 2, a 31-yard pass to Jaden Reed, a 10-yard pass to Dillon on 2nd and 10, a conversion on 3rd and 4 to Aaron Jones, a conversion due to defensive pass interference on 3rd and 6. We made the plays that were necessary to have a sustained drive. I would say that the most discouraging part of that drive is we got down to a 1st and goal on the 1, and it took us 5 plays. We somehow managed to take a 1st and 1 to 4th and 1 over 5 plays. It took us 5 plays to get into the end zone from 1st and goal at the 1. And that's a lot like that first drive where we had 3 attempts to make a short 3rd down conversion. We failed at all 3 here. We had 5 attempts, and it was thankfully on the 5th attempt that we actually scored from the 1-yard line. But if you're at the 1-yard line on 1st and goal, you should be scoring somewhere before 4th down.
No matter how you do it. Dillon had been having some success running the ball. So again, they started giving it to him. And I'm going to bring this up right now. I never want to see the Packers on 4th down or a 3rd and short line up in the shotgun and hand the goddamn ball off. That shit can stop right now. I think we're done with that play. Sort of like the wide receiver jet sweep. That shit does not work. Teams have figured it out. Stop doing it. Thank you.
Excellent public service. But, you know, the caveat though there is handing the ball and trying to run straight up the gut, really.
Yeah, fine. Okay, yeah.
Maybe something different, but you're right.
Although it would be nice if we'd actually block their best players
somebody
or something
too,
like
right?
that. Yeah.
And not put a tight end on one of their best defensive linemen.
At any rate, it's near the end of the 3rd quarter and we're within 2 scores. And the Vikings get the ball back. And unfortunately, our defense once again allows a really long drive. They had a 14-play, 60-yard drive that went from the 3rd into the fourth quarter, they had a couple of long passes, which again was the bugaboo on the overall game. But we also had a roughing the passer thrown in just for shits and giggles to do something different as a way to screw up a 3rd and 11 play in which we seem to have stopped them.
Yeah.
But thankfully, despite the Vikings moving the ball way downfield, they lined up for a field goal, and the Vikings asshats are, let's just say, they're in 1998 Vikings form.
Yep. Big man coming right up the gut, makes the block. It was a beautiful thing.
KGB is a lovely player. And yes, Carl Brooks' middle name is not start with the letter G, but he's got the right number. I'm calling Carl Brooks KGB for the rest of the season, and I hope
I meant
he rises to that level.
I did look that up for you, and I think it's D. You can call him KDB if you want.
Nope, KGB.
No?
KGB.
All right.
No, we're going with that. Because, he forced his way in, blocked the kick. Now we're still thinking, okay, it's a 2-touchdown game. Good things can happen here. We're just getting into the fourth quarter. We can be on a roll here.
And after a blocked field goal, you've got great field position too. We started out on our own 44 on that next drive.
Here's something we have not talked about this season. Our special teams keeping us in the game. And what we're going to find out in the fourth quarter here, our defense keeping us in the game, giving this offense opportunities, and the offense is faltering.
Well, that's one word. I would use other, more maybe descriptive words.
Yeah, our chat was a little bit more colorful in the fourth quarter, but yeah, I mean, the Packers get the ball back, and we had our opportunities in the fourth quarter. We started from our own 44 on that drive after the blocked field goal. We got all the way down to the Minnesota 10. We made some good conversions overall, but that's where we had the Wicks drop. That was a critical play. And, when you look at where we had opportunities in the game that, with a little bit of a different luck, things might have gone differently. That Wicks drop that was at least a first down and possibly a touchdown is certainly one of those things. And I think one of the elements is that I think us as fans, certainly we're down 2 touchdowns this early fourth quarter. We, of course, said you have to go for it on fourth. The irony of all this is that if the Packers had actually kicked field goals on those first 2 drives in the fourth quarter, we'd have had a chance to win with the touchdown and a 2-point conversion. But I don't think any of us thought at the time, oh yeah, you definitely want to kick a field goal. That sounded like a loser's mentality. And we had to go for it. And we had opportunities, but they ended up being too long an opportunity, and we just didn't convert on them. But again, a long drive got us down to the Minnesota 10 and turnover on downs.
Well, so this is where things get really interesting though, right? Because now Cousins is out. And so they give it to a guy who's never basically been in an NFL game before. He does what somebody that's just coming off the bench, and as a rookie, he does what they typically do. And unfortunately, our defense was hungry enough and pressured him enough to force that fumble, which was huge.
Great play by Preston Smith. Great recovery by Devontae Wyatt. Our defense seemed to come alive in the fourth quarter in a way that we've talked about, how the defense seems to start hot and then maybe not finish hot, and maybe even finish the opposite of hot. The defense definitely did the things they need to do in the fourth quarter. I would have loved to see them do it in the first, second, or third quarters, but be that as it may, they made plays in the fourth quarter to give us a chance. And that strip sack fumble was a perfect opportunity for us to take advantage of, well, we maybe didn't get the touchdown on the last drive, but now we can do it on this drive, starting from the Minnesota 15.
So the defense smells blood in the water. They get the turnover. The Vikings are probably thinking, oh shit, right here, we've got a big problem. We've got a rookie quarterback in. They're going to score, they're on the 15-yard line. They're just going to go ahead and score a touchdown. But then once again, the script doesn't follow.
A 1-yard run, and then on 2nd and 9, Jordan Love is sacked for -7 yards. We face a 3rd and 16 as the third play of the drive. And again, our common theme this year has been too many 3rd and longs. 3rd and 16 is a long way to go. And we have an incompletion. We have 4th and 16 now. And instead of going, say, 8 yards and 8 yards, we're now at 4th and 16. Jordan Love makes a decision to run. He ends up being 1 yard short. And that's the end of that drive.
Brutal. One juke, one missed tackle, something like that. Again, he's energized. And I think who made the tackle was Harrison Smith. And he has been a thorn in the Packers side for a long time. I mean, he's a good player, but he always seems to make the key plays on defense. And that was another one where just another yard, yard and a half, then it's 1st and goal. And then we're right there. So then they've got 4 more plays to try and get in the end zone, but they're a lot closer. But right. So at this point, time's starting to run out, but rookie quarterback defense steps up again.
Yeah, although it took a while for the defense to step up, and they even converted on a 3rd and 8 with the pass to Hawkinson, even with their, I don't know what we'd call a Wookiee quarterback or whatever. The young quarterback makes a 3rd and 8 conversion, and that was the theme all game long. Yeah. They had a ton of 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 conversions, made one there again, and it was probably too late anyway, but it's just disconcerting to allow them to make that 3rd and 8 conversion with that young quarterback, somebody who should be very subject to pressure. And on top of all that, we also had a defensive penalty on that play to help them extend the drive. Now, it was only a 6-play, 23-yard drive, but when time is short, all of those little things added up. We really needed a 3 and out. And between the penalty and the conversion, that basically took away any chance that we had.
Penalties. There were just a few of those. I don't know if the Packers' goal was to hit the century mark for penalties, because if it was, well, they didn't reach it.
That's not true. That is not true, Jeff. They officially were 11 penalties for 99 yards. Yeah. And that was well spread out between the offense, defense, and special teams. The special teams had 2 penalties for 15 yards. Defense had 4 penalties for 50 yards. The offense had 5 penalties for 45 yards. But it wasn't just the yards that were lost by the penalties. It was the plays that were lost by the penalties. And so the Rasheed Walker penalty on the scorecard only counts as a 5-yard penalty, but that cost us the 21-yard reception to Dobbs. I consider that a 26-yard penalty. John Runyon had a holding penalty that was technically 10 yards, but it cost us a 5-yard game. And Watson had an offensive pass interference that was technically a 10-yard penalty, but it cost us an 11-yard gain. In addition, there were 2 penalties that were either offsetting penalties or that were declined because of poor play on our part. Overall in the game, we had 13 penalties that were called on us. Only 11 were assessed. But in those 13 penalties, the offense had fundamentally 6 penalties for 87 yards of offense lost. The defense, 4 penalties for 50 yards lost. Special teams, including the lost yards from the return, 3 penalties, 33 yards lost. Overall, those 13 penalties cost us 170 yards of ball position in the game. 13 penalties, 170 yards.
Ouch. All right, now I'm going to start drinking heavily.
Thought you already did.
Wow. You're right, Neil. Once you start adding up the lost yards on the plays as well, I mean, holy cows, that's incredible, considering the yards are at a premium still for this young offense. So
well, I mean, let's just go to it. We had 270 total yards of offense, and we killed ourselves functionally with 170 yards in penalty. Well, you don't have a real chance, and that just goes to the theme of the entire year. We consistently put ourselves on our back foot, whether it's giving them first downs, and the Vikings had 4 first downs that they achieved through Packers penalties, whether it's our special teams being backed up, or alternatively, in the first quarter, we had an opportunity where it went from a 4th and 6 to could have been a 4th and 1, except it was offsetting penalties. So it was just a repunt on the 4th and 6. It was opportunities that were missed on offense, or opportunities missed on special teams. And then, of course, the plays that were lost on offense. And it was just absolutely devastating as far as the missed opportunities we had because of essentially shooting ourselves in the dick.
You mentioned, though, 270 yards of offense, Neil. The glaring thing that's missing from that is our 2 running backs only give us 40 yards on the ground. Jordan Love is the leading rusher with 34 yards. Dillon and Jones combined for 40 yards on 13 carries. That's abysmal. That right there just is not going to cut it. And when we talk about this team just not scoring, not putting things together, too much of this blame is going on Jordan Love. Jordan Love is your leading rusher with 34 yards. He's not the running backs only putting out 40 yards on 13 carries. He's not the receivers dropping passes. He's not linemen going downfield illegally or holding or making false starts. To say that Jordan Love is the problem in this team is absolutely ludicrous. I think he's playing well, and I think he showed it on Sunday as well. He's extending plays. He's getting passes to where they need to be. He's showing that he understands the offense. Granted, the offense that he's given to run starts out a little bit slow, but he's still putting it together. And in my opinion, I think that he's being given these like minor opportunities throughout the first half to let himself get a feel for what's going on with the defense so that he can go into that position of making calls, making audibles, and running. I know the entire offense. Here's the play. I know what to work off of it. Unfortunately, this is preseason stuff. This is stuff that should have been happening previously. We're seeing it in real time. But Jeff, this is the growing pains that you expected to see with this team. They're doing it just in real time in regular season games in front of them.
There's growing pains, and then there's just nearly incompetence. We're dangerously close to, in some areas to that. Christian Watson, okay, he's a second-year receiver.
Right.
He immediately engages for a block, and he knows what the goddamn play is, right? So don't touch the guy and immediately go into a blocking stance. Do a stutter, something. Just don't get called for obvious offensive pass interference. The drops, we've beaten that to death. So my overall thought is, does this team know how to win? They know how to lose. They've got that figured out. They're getting pretty goddamn creative. But do they know how to win?
But I can't put this on the players knowing how to win. Again, they're inexperienced. And yes, some of them come from large programs. But going back to John's point about the running backs only having 40 total yards rushing, A.J. Dillon had 41 receiving yards in the game. That's Jordan Love getting the running backs involved. Jones had 17 yards receiving. I mean, the running backs were getting involved because Jordan Love was getting the ball to them, not because the play calling got the running backs involved. And going back to John's point about Jordan Love being the person making the plays, we had 2 scoring drives. And in those 2 scoring drives, in the first half, when we scored a field goal, there was a Jordan Love to Christian Watson 11-yard conversion on 3rd and 6, a Love to Jones conversion on 3rd and 3, and a Love to Musgrave conversion on 3rd and 6. 3 of our third down conversions of the game were Jordan Love passes. And then in the second half, when we scored the touchdown, 3rd and 2, a pass to Dobbs for 10 yards, 3rd and 6, defensive pass interference, and a 4th and goal, Dobbs for a touchdown. When plays needed to be made on 3rd down, it was always Jordan Love who's the one making those plays. It was not because a running game was doing anything.
And speaking of running game, I just want to point this out. So the Vikings tried to establish a running game. They ran the ball 31 times and came up with 62 yards. So John, can you do the math on that for me?
Yes, that's 2 yards. Sounds like 2 yards.
From a defensive perspective, from that statistic, so they tried to establish the running game, and Packers defense that has given up huge rushing games was stout here. 31 tries for 62 yards. Okay, good.
And we like to extrapolate our statistics as well. Jordan Love is still on pace for over 3,600 yards passing. He's still on pace for 22 touchdown passes. Jaden Reed is on pace for around 736 receiving yards. As a rookie, that's going to put him in top 5 rookie territory for the Packers. He's on pace to have 7 touchdown catches. So this is a team that there are players who are the right players that are putting things together. Other players need to step up. And to ask, today was the trade deadline. Who do you trade? Just give these guys some time. This is just their first season putting things together. Jordan Love is not the issue on this team, and I'm gonna stand by that continuously.
That's your hill, John.
That's my hill. Jordan Love is not the issue on this team.
I don't actually think that's that tall of a hill, John.
No, right.
It just goes back into the whole issue of what we've had for a problem all year. We have had too many 3rd and long. We've put ourselves in a bad position, and even when we've had 3rd and short, we haven't been able to convert those. Just going back to the first drive, we essentially had 2 3rd and 1s that we failed on and a 3rd and 6. We missed on a 3rd and 6. We missed on a 3rd and 17 that because of a penalty became a 3rd and 22. We had a 3rd and 6 on the next drive, 3rd and 8 that we missed on, 3rd and 15, 4th and 5, 3rd and 16, 4th and 16, 3rd and 10, 4th and 20. That is not a position for putting your quarterback to be able to be successful.
No, when you're watching the game, and anytime there's stats, not good stats that go back to the 80s, that's another one where it's like, oh geez.
Yeah, I don't even remember what the stat was, but there was something like the Packers haven't done this since 1980, and it's like, Yeah,
Yeah.
we were all in high school, and we are not spring chickens. If it's a
Yeah.
stat that the Packers haven't done since we were in high school, that's not good. Going to the other side, though, as far as the defense is concerned, the defense allowed a lot of third down conversions for the Vikings. So overall in the game, the Vikings were 10 of 18 on third downs, 1 of 1 on fourth down. So fundamentally on drives, they were 11 of 18 when they needed to make a conversion. And that included passing conversions on a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 3rd and goal, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 8. 3rd and 8 has been a real bugaboo distance. It is historically a difficult distance for teams to achieve. The Vikings had 7 conversions of 3rd and 8 or longer in that game.
Once again, the final score, 24-10. A game in which I think Green Bay, we never really felt out of it. We just talked about it. It was a game that, again, like I said, down the stretch, could have stayed in the game, could have won this game. But that most important statistic, Neil, the score, 24-10. Packers come away with the loss, but a few other things you want to take a note of.
In the end, it was our first 4 offensive drives and what the Vikings did in the other direction that made all the difference. In the Packers' first 4 drives, we had 12 plays for 10 yards. We had 4 3-and-outs. As I said, in the first quarter, it was 8 first downs for the Vikings to 0 for the Packers. It ended up being 13-0. But first downs in all of the last 3 quarters. Second quarter, it was 5-5 for first downs. Third quarter, it was 6-6. Fourth quarter, it was 5-5 for first downs. It was an even game for 3 quarters. But unfortunately, that's not how the game is played. You've got to play all 4 quarters. And it's that inability to start both on offense and defense that killed us in this game.
Despite the results of the game, one of the sayings that we have at the Lot 1 tailgate party is, we've never lost the tailgate. And Sunday was no different. It was really a good day for football, ultimately, or at least for watching and for tailgating. It ended up being overcast, a little breezy with a north wind, cooled things off a bit, but it didn't rain and it didn't snow. There was the threat of rain, threat of snow, and I think that's what caused the crowd was kind of a late arriving crowd on Sunday. And ticket prices did drop on Sunday. If you were looking to get into the Packers game, that Packers-Vikings game would have been one to get into, surprisingly, because usually, Jeff, the Minnesota fans like to come in and snatch up all those cheap tickets when they can and fill the stadium. There was not as much purple on Sunday as I expected there to be. That's a good thing. But the purple that was there, good-natured fans, they knew that their team is struggling as well. They were hoping not to lose to a team that's struggling. But all in all, we had a good day. We had a great turnout, great crowd at the Lot 1 tailgate party. The Shotsky, of course, was going. The Grandma Lambo's apple pie was flowing. And it was Halloween. So there was a smattering of fun costumes that went along with Halloween trick-or-treating in the Packer game. All in all, a good day on Sunday. And you know what? We're going to do it again this Sunday because we're there for every game. Doesn't matter, green or gold package. We'll be there for the Rams game. We'll be there for the Chargers game in a couple of weeks. But the great news about this Rams game coming up this Sunday is 2 really cool guys that I know are also going to be in attendance at the Lot 1 tailgate party. And you plan on coming into town. Let's go!
Go Pack, go. Looking forward to a great weekend. Looking forward to Jeff not getting COVID and actually showing up for a change of pace. But yeah, we'll have a GBC podcast reunion on Sunday. It should be great. And hopefully on Saturday as well.
Yeah, it should have been the second one in 3 weeks. With COVID behind me now, I'll be bringing my son. So this will be his first Lambeau experience. He's been asking me a few questions. He'll get to see Lambeau Field tailgating in all of its glory.
So the game is at noon. That means the parking lot opens up at 8 o'clock. That means the party starts at 8:01 a.m. As soon as they can get in the lot and get across, we start getting set up and the bar gets set up. The music starts going and you can get there as early as you want, stay as long as you want, bring a friend and just have a good time. The beverages will be there. Again, it's adult trick-or-treating. You want something to eat, walk around, find someone that's got food, give them a couple of dollars. You want a beverage, walk around, find someone that's got beverages, give them a couple of dollars. Everything is good. We're in a good spot in Lot 1. We are in the northwest corner of Lot 1, closest to the Oneida Gate steps. And that is the main walkway as you come up from Oneida Street. The Packers along their Tundra Village, they have Packer Pro Shop, and there was a bunch of other displays set up. Here's the best thing, you guys. Sargento Cheese had a trailer literally right next to us, and they were giving away cheese sticks, like the string cheese
String
stick.
cheese.
Everybody kept coming by eating this cheese. And once the game started, they had a ton left over. They just opened up the cooler. We walked over and, we took mounds of cheese sticks. Here's the thing I didn't know. Leroy Butler was there. Leroy Butler was within 100 yards of me the entire day on Sunday, and I had no idea that they had Leroy Butler in the Sargento Cheese trailer. People were getting pictures taken with him, and he posted on social media. He had a great time. So there is a lot to see tailgating. You don't have to just come to the Lot 1 party. You can walk all the way around and find out what other people are doing, because everybody's there to have fun. Everybody's there to share in the experience, unless they're in those private party houses over on Shadow Lane. They're too good for you, but everyone else is ready to go. And that is the beauty. And we're looking at another good day on Sunday. We're hoping that the rain and the snow chances stay off. Temperatures could be a little bit warmer, pushing 50 degrees, still overcast, but the wind's lesser. That's the current projection. So it should be a great day. Los Angeles Rams coming into town. This is a team that fan base does not travel well.
In addition to the fan base not traveling well, as of late, the Packers have had pretty good success against this team. Granted, we're kind of setting new records, not necessarily for the good this year coming into this game, but one of these weeks, it's got to click, right? I mean, it's a home game. It's November, as John has mentioned. It's a party. It's tailgate time, and hopefully, let's get back on track. Let's get a victory. Pulled it 2-2 at home.
That's the thing, right? So we've been punched in the jaw a couple times, and arguably we've been a little bit glass-jawed as far as how we've responded to it so far this season. But it seemed to have a different response after that Vikings game. And I think one of the key elements of that post game after the Vikings was there seemed to be a coalescence of veterans on the team, these small number of veterans on the team, that this is going to be our opportunity. We've got to figure out a way to get ourselves better. And I think the most encouraging thing for me is that there seems to be some leadership that says, okay, we are going to respond to what happens in the last few weeks. And the favorite quotes that I had after that Vikings game were just Rasul Douglas just sitting there and holding court. He was going to respond to every single element. He was going to say, he talked to Jordan Love, he talked to the players on the offense, talked to the players on the defense. Rasul Douglas is going to have this team ready to respond against the Rams.
Hold on, Neil. We have a news flash. Rasul Douglas has been traded by the Green Bay Packers. Today is the NFL trade deadline. The Green Bay Packers sent Rasul Douglas and a 5th-round pick to the Buffalo Bills. And in return, we'll get the dreaded 3rd-round draft pick in 2024. So as much as you were excited, I think I was excited that, hey, Douglas is a guy we brought in. We found this guy last year, right? And wow, we need this guy to really step up. And now, oh shit, what did we just do?
It's veteran leadership that we're losing, and it's unfortunate. One of these years we have to get a good 3rd-round draft pick, right? I mean, it can't be a terrible draft pick. We're going on, whatever, like 13 straight years of terrible. No, we're at 13 straight years of terrible 3rd-round draft picks, but at some point it's going to make a difference, and you'd rather have those better opportunities with the higher picks in the draft. And yes, I was a little bit crushed when I heard the news that Rasul was traded. I think that his leadership would have been helpful in the upcoming games in the rest of the season. But at the same point, I understand why we did it. I see that we are moving towards the future, and I think that we do still have the same pieces in place. We just have to move some younger players that are going to be taking more prominent roles in the secondary, and we do what we have to do. And it's our opportunity. It's the opportunity for young players to shine. And I'm obviously going to be cheering for Rasul on the Bills. We obviously had a strong positive opinion for Bills fans anyway, and seeing Rasul take a leadership role on the Bills is something that's going to be fun to watch. But that doesn't really change what the trajectory of this year's team is. They still have opportunities to make a mark. And while they will not be a 12-5 team or an 11-6 team, they still have their opportunities. And let's go and see this team try to do something and move forward from their youth into something that shows progress toward the future.
And this is a move that depletes probably the part of the defense that has been the most questionable, right? It's a young cornerback defensive backfield that has been struggling, and now you take Douglas out. Eric Stokes isn't ready to come back, and you've got Jair Alexander, who is working through a back injury. Keshawn Nixon is up and down. Does it allow Carrington Valentine and Corey Ballantyne to come up and do some work? It does.
Yeah.
But it's going to cause these younger guys to struggle. In addition to Rudy Ford and Jonathan Owens in the safety position, it really is going to be tough on that defensive backfield.
Especially with the season getting harder and the opposing quarterbacks getting a lot better.
Yeah, but in the end, they've got to learn, they've got to adjust, and we've got a lot of young players. This is their opportunity. And going back to Eric Stokes returning, going back to Darnell Savage, the jersey I'm wearing, right? He's going to come back from injured reserve in a few weeks, and they've got the opportunity to coalesce into something that is better. And is it an ideal situation if we are trying to win this year and this year only? No, but we saved $6 million in cap. We moved up probably 50 picks in the draft. I loved Rasul Douglas, but it's a perfectly reasonable move by Gutekunst, and it's going to give opportunities for other people. And so let's see how the players step up.
Yeah, I think this seemed to be more than anything a business decision. I mean, most of the time it is, right? I mean, but he was generally well liked. He had a big cap number coming up. It's unfortunate, but he wasn't traded to an NFC team. Yay. Like you said, we'll see how we'll see if he thrives, because the Bills really, it'll be interesting. Maybe this gets the Bills over the hump. Who knows? But we'll see.
The Bills succeeding because of Rasul Douglas would make me happy. And just to summarize Rasul Douglas top line stats in Green Bay: 174 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 10 interceptions, including 2 pick sixes that were big in games in previous years. He certainly had a short but very happy time in Green Bay.
And that kind of leads us into, before we really talk about week 9 and the Rams coming to town, Jeff, you've got a quick history for us on some other trades in Packer history.
Trades are part of the business. Some trades work out, some trades do not, sort of like the draft. But with today's somewhat unexpected, I would say, trade of Rasul Douglas, I wanted to look back and just on some other Packer trades and throw out some names, kind of a trip down amnesia lane here for a few moments. Some of the recent offseason trades, of course, that Green Bay has made: a guy by the name of Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Brett Favre. Okay, so we know about those. So here's a couple names you may have forgotten about: Matt Hasselbeck, Mike McKenzie, Terry Glenn, Willie Buchanan was traded, Hall of Famer James Lofton was a Packer who was traded, and even the beloved Herb Adderley was traded. So perhaps the player that has had the greatest success after being traded, although he had great success as a Packer, but the Packers did not have success as a team, was Tim Harris. So he was a defensive anchor for the Packers after being drafted in the 4th round of the 1986 draft. He had 5 very productive seasons in Green Bay, recording at least 7 sacks in each of those years. But incredibly, in 1989, he had 19 and a half. And in 1988, he had 13 and a half. So 1989 really was 19 and a half sacks. That's pretty damn good. So he was traded to the San Francisco 49ers, and the Packers received a 2nd-round pick. The 2nd-round pick, was later traded back to the 49ers for a guy named Mike Holmgren. But Tim, like I said, did have success as a 49er. He had some injuries, but ultimately in 1994, he played a part in helping the 49ers win Super Bowl 29. He had 4.5 sacks in 3 playoff games. When players are traded away, you never know what's going to happen, but thought I'd throw some names out there tonight.
And I was really just as surprised because the NFL trade deadline has always been very blah. The NFL doesn't do mid-season trades like baseball and basketball do, but I think that they are, in the name of ratings, are finding, hey, this is something that we're going to get Tuesday clicks, we're going to get Tuesday news bites, and teams are more open to this trade deadline. And I think that's going to change over the next few years as well. But up until this year, Packers just really have not been players, and people always want them to. Oh, I want this. Let's do this. Let's do that. It just doesn't happen. So to see Douglas get traded away, definitely a surprise. With that, it brings the 3-5 Los Angeles Rams into town to face the 2-5 Green Bay Packers. And it's a Los Angeles Rams team that openly complained when the schedule came out because they've come to Green Bay in the cold weather months, and these Los Angeles players viewing November as a cold weather month. Like I said, it's not going to be that cold, and we don't consider November a cold weather month. It's all relative. The Lambeau mystique, I feel, is falling short this year, but Neil, there's still hope. What do you see for the Rams coming into town?
Let's just start out with the fact that Matt Stafford might be out with a thumb injury. And I'd say globally, the Rams have at some level overperformed. They've certainly had some good games, but again, they're still 3-5. This is a team that we can be competitive again. As Jeff has noted previously, we have been extremely competitive with them recently. Looking at the numbers going into the Rams game, overall DVOA, the Packers are 26th, the Rams are 21st. The big element for the Rams is their 13th DVOA on offense, but without Matt Stafford and with Cooper Kupp continuing to suffer from injuries, I don't think they're going to perform at that level. There's been a lot of discussion about how the Packers defense has been doing okay and the offense has been coming up short. By DVOA, the Packers are ranked 21st on offense and 28th on defense. That is, DVOA says it's our defense that's actually coming up short even more than our offense is. Special teams also at 28th. Where's our opportunity? The Rams defense is also very mediocre by DVOA. Their special teams is actually 32nd in the NFL. That is, they may be the worst asshats in the entire NFL by DVOA. Just as far as the overall numbers of yards per game, their offense has been pass oriented as you might expected. Their defense is good against the pass, not as good against the run. Fundamentally, both teams are about the same, right? We're mid-level teams. We're both 3-5, 2-5 teams. The numbers end up being in that same place. We're both even as far as our turnovers. Where we have our opportunities is seeing that growth as a young team. We have had this stretch of 5 straight games scoring less than 20 points, but we've seen why we have the ability to score more than that. We've seen how, you have one catch, one non-drop, couple of movements, have a not penalty show up, and we could do a whole lot better. And I think that we are seeing where we've got the opportunities for growth. And I think that is where, as Packers fans looking at that 2-5 record, we're not depressed completely. We are saying, hey, we see where the path for growth is. And that's where the opportunities are lie. We see that growth in the offense. We're going to do better. And also we've been subject to injuries, and we see more players come back. We see Jair, obviously he was at a very less than Jair level in the game against the Vikings. He gets a little bit back closer to full strength. Rashawn Gary gets closer to full strength, and the full contract was a beautiful thing to see today that he has now been extended. Clearly our best defensive player. We see our defensive players move back to full strength and going to full numbers of snaps. We're going to see that defense improve. And let's hope that the Rams game is where we see that happen. And then we saw growth as far as our defensive line was concerned. So TJ Slayton had 9 tackles on runs, gained less than 2 yards in the game against the Vikings. He is clearly stepping up as a younger player that is starting to mature. And then the key maturation that we need is we need to see maturation in our receivers. So in drops and contested catches, the Packers currently have the highest loss rate for drops and contested catches at 25.7% loss rate for drops and contested catches. Good teams are more in the 10 to 15% range. Our receivers are going to get better. I have confidence in those players. They are gaining experience. They're getting better every week. It is going to be a halting experience, and that's going to show up in our passing stats. But this is still a young team that is continuing to improve. I hope this is the week where we see the real improvement. We see a real jump. We see a little bit of anger. They've been punched in the jaw the last few weeks. This is their opportunity to move themselves forward. I am really feeling good about this game against the Rams.
Well, and this is a game too where the schedule after this game gets harder. Road games, better teams have better quarterbacks, etc. So this is sort of their, I don't say their last chance. I don't sound like that, but certainly this is an opportunity. I want to see I want to see the offense score like 3 touchdowns. Hey, there's a concept. Let's break 20. Let's break 30. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for as well. Just like they don't have to be perfect, but I mean, if they can just like we've been talking about, I mean, just give us more than like part of a quarter or a quarter and or whatever. Give us like 2 quarters, 3 quarters, just something.
Or even going back, right? I mean, just seeing a couple of big plays, see some breakthrough plays to Watson, to Dobbs, to Reed, Wicks, whoever, some big breakthrough plays that we saw a little bit in the early part of the season. We haven't seen the last few weeks. We make a few connections on those plays, and this season and our outlook is very different.
I want to see Jones back. That's the other thing. We've been sort of feeding Dylan, and I think where Dylan is most valuable, perhaps, is catching the ball, but sort of in the middle of the field, almost like a tight end. Because once he gets that ball, what 190-pound defensive back is going to want to tackle this dude? And as he showed in the Vikings game, he's just rolling downhill and plowing people over. That's what we want to see. So, okay, get the tight ends involved. Keep throwing them the ball. What happened to Tucker Kraft? I want to see.
But even in the Vikings game, Luke Musgrave only had 2 receptions for 9 yards. Like the tight ends disappeared in that Vikings game. Those players appear, and it's a different game.
Absolutely. But I mean, again, if we can get Aaron Jones, just get that dude 100 yards. I mean, because he's good. He's fast. And I'm just still not, I don't know if it's still an injury or lack of blocking. I don't know what it is, but just that's going to cause offenses to go, oh, okay, play action. Do we load the box? Let's break out of this funk, or whatever other F word you want to use. Let's just break out of this and let's see, especially since I'm going to be there. That would be nice. Just do it for me, right? It's a simple request. I'm going to show up. It's the first time in like a decade plus I've been there. I want to see a win. But I want to see a good win, a quality win. I want to see some offense. I want to see some defense played well. And for my son, if nothing else, this is his first game. Let's have a Packer win.
Okay, I guess I don't need to ask you guys for closing thoughts because that is pretty much going to do it. The only other thing I would add to it is tailgating. The great thing about the NFL is they keep making more games. And when there's home games, it's a party. The anticipation, the build up to the game, to me, that's the best part. We will have a good crowd. We'll have good music. We'll have good food and beverages and good friends getting together on Sunday. So I'm looking forward to see you guys as well. We'll let the Packers take care of their team part of it. We'll do our part out in the lot 1. All right, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe, leave a comment. Find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat. That's all one word on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and Spotify. We're on Facebook at the GBC Podcast Green Bay Chat. We are definitely going to start increasing TikToks from tailgating, so keep an eye out for that as well, because we want to show you how much fun it is to go to a Packer game at Lambeau Field, and we hope you get a chance to join us. Ticket prices for Sunday at about face value right now, but they are going to drop if you're thinking about going to the game on Sunday. As always, may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Night.